My name is Brandon Fogal. This is Evolution. We're going to be diving into it. I got a special guest today. We are going to be talking about J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson. I just spoke about this in yesterday's video, but I'm going to be talking about this. And I have actually my wife here, my lovely wife, Jessi Fogal.
Hello.
So we're going to be bouncing it. You're going to be in my wall that can, I'm trying to think of a word that can give me pointers or help bring me down to earth, because you do that pretty well, Jessi. We'll see how this goes. All right, we're doing it on the fly, but we're gonna figure out how all this goes. I'm manning the controls myself, so if there's any lag, it's on me, and I own that. All right, but we're gonna take a look at J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson. They discussed this was in their sit down, which they went into a lot of areas regarding Judaism, Israel, and is it good for the church? Have people been led astray by the things that they believe about Israel? It was a very hot button conversation. And what they got into here was regarding rabbinic Judaism. Almost J.D. Hall made it seem like it's not a valid viewpoint. It's not connected with the Old Testament. It's not connected with real Judaism. It's like almost a made up thing, since there is no temple and no sacrificial system. But we're going to dive into this. And so, Jessi, you can just give me whatever you think about it as we go along. But here we go.
Rabbinic Judaism is not Christianity minus Jesus. That's what Christians need to understand.
Yes.
It is a completely different faith from what you see in the pages of your Old Testament.
Because that faith required the presence of a temple where God lived.
Yes, absolutely. It's in the architecture of the religion. God designed it so that it could not endure without the temple. That's why God is always promising the Jewish people in the pages of the Old Testament that if they misbehave, he will have the land vomit them out. He will bring them into exile. He will wipe the land free of them.
So first of all, we're going to go in and out of this, because in this part of the conversation, this is where he really got into it about, and I think that it felt like he was throwing Judaism under the bus in a lot of ways, mischaracterizing it kind of from my perspective. You know, I'm not where I think I speak with absolute authority. Like this is the correct way. And I know a lot of people on the internet, like that's what you feel like you need to be, like that, to be a voice that stands out. But I'm, as any other normal, regular Christian, that I want to come to the truth. But I don't think that all truth is inside of my head. But Jessi, just getting into this, I didn't prep her at all, so she's kind of fresh coming into this. Probably doesn't have any like strong viewpoints about this matter at all. I don't know, but go ahead, Jessi, if you have anything regarding this. If you, she doesn't want to be hung out to dry. She says, "Don't hang me out to dry."
I almost need like a recap of even what they said.
Okay. So, just getting into this, and that he started off with that rabbinic Judaism is not necessarily just Christianity minus Jesus. It's just that it's almost that it is a different viewpoint than the actual Old Testament. It's like completely new. Like they've
because there's no temple.
Because there's no temple. They've created it completely out of thin air, pretty much.
Okay.
So, okay. So I would just say for me, my perspective, that it is a continuation of the same viewpoint in the Old Testament. Like, and I would start it off with how, like, whenever the Jewish people went out into exile, God, he promised them if they kept the covenant, if they obeyed his laws, that he would bless them in the land and he wouldn't vomit them out of the land. But then we see that there are times and periods and times that the people go and are thrown out of the land. You know what I mean? They're tossed out of the land. They go into Babylonian exile. And to say that, like, because they're in exile, that they're no longer legitimately practicing the religion. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, because they're not in the land where the temple is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But Jessi, I'm throwing this like about this, like from your perspective at all. I know, and you stay out of all this. I don't know if this probably doesn't make you don't like really get into this type of stuff that much. You don't think about this, do you?
No.
But feel free. Yeah, go ahead. Feel free to
What's the question?
Huh? Like, so just did you have any comments about it?
No.
Nothing. Okay. We're good to go. We're good to go. I have a lot of things.
What do you have to say about it?
What do I have to say? I have a lot of things to say about it, but
Oh.
but we'll go a little bit further and regarding this with J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson.
And he created a religion that would be temporary. It all revolves around the temple. And they weren't free to change that religion either. And so I'll give you an example. There's a story in the Old Testament of two guys that were left behind to essentially guard the altar as Moses and the elders go up on the mountain. Their names were Nadab and Abihu.
So, Jessi, you're familiar with this story, Nadab and Abihu, right?
Are they good? Are they good or bad? No,
are they good?
Nadab.
Huh? Nadab and Abihu. So these were the first priests of Israel. These were like the first guys who were appointed, and then they got killed because they were offering unauthorized fire on the altar.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So he's making a comparison that because these guys did not the prescripted way that God had given them, that they weren't practicing right. And I don't really necessarily understand his whole point when he brings this up, besides to say that they were carrying the religion incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that the religion in itself, the way that the God prescribed it, was invalid to be carried out. So I think this is almost, to me, a red herring in bringing this up, this whole situation or this episode that happened with Nadab and Abihu. It doesn't really fit with what he's talking about, because the way I get into this is that because if we just step back a little bit, what is Judaism? What is rabbinic Judaism? Do you know anything about those particular topics?
No, I do not.
You don't know anything about it?
Tell me like I'm 5.
Okay, well, I mean, just Judaism in general. Do you know what Judaism is?
It's the religion of Jesus at the time, right? Of the Old Testament?
Yes.
Old Testament religion. With the sacrifices and the laws and things.
Yeah. Yes. And so it's the religion of Jesus. It's the religion that is given in the Old Testament. It's the religion of the Jewish people. And rabbinic Judaism has been like they make it seem like it was just created after Jesus, a way to keep everything intact. So it's like the Jews were given the law, which is like the first 5 books of Moses, but then they were given also they were given the responsibility to decide how to actually carry out the law. And so if like the law says, keep the Sabbath, well, how do you do that? You know what I mean? What does that even mean? And so there's the tradition, like in Christianity, we have traditions, but like with the Jews, they have traditions of that God gave them the authority to rightly interpret even his laws and to make kind of laws around his laws of how to actually, and frameworks to actually how to carry it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like, and it developed into, which is the written Torah, the written law, and then the oral Torah, or the oral law that the Jews abide by. And it's kind of like the one's written down, obviously, that's what it means, and the oral is it's just the spoken. But then the spoken oral Torah was eventually, after Jesus, codified into what's the Mishnah and the Talmud. And there's like all those like kind of like these discussions between rabbis and how to rightly carry out laws, that they wrote it all down, like in the like kind of the centuries after Jesus. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So about all that and getting into this, so I just throwing it out to you. So does that make? What do you think about like when I say rabbinic Judaism? What do you think about that?
How is that different than regular Judaism?
That's a good question, and I think it's just this label. It feels like just this label that we've thrown on there. Like it's just a way of just like was Jesus practicing rabbinic Judaism? Like, and I would say that this is where I kind of bottom line. I think it is the same thing. I think that we're creating it, we're making it rabbinic Judaism and just labeling it that so that we can disconnect it from being tethered to truth. And almost like we're making something up because we are like, we have Christianity. Christianity is the fulfillment. It's the new reality. It's the new man. And everything before it was just leading up to it. It's kind of like for our infancy, for people's infancy. And now we're now that we have like kind of the fulfillment of Jesus, we don't need all that stuff beforehand, kind of thing. But what do you think
About what?
about that? Like,
I don't know. It has nothing to do with me really on my daily life, I guess. I don't know.
So me even just talking about this when I'm going through this, and you can tell me like I might be describing it completely terribly. I know you don't think about this stuff probably in the same way that I do, or even just a lot of people on YouTube that are watching these videos, these conversations like Tucker Carlson has, that you're not like in it, you know? I mean, I guess like just somebody that's just like involved in like watching sports, you know, like what the stat line is, you know, what's the cover on this game, who's projected to win, who's all this. So, and you could probably speak a lot more about like clothing, fashion, dresses, and your stuff than I. Like, you won't even let me touch your shows, will you? About your show that
because you don't know anything about it.
Yeah. But from your vantage point and talking about this rabbinic Judaism, and do you have any thoughts about it? Like, does it?
I mean, what are they supposed to be doing? There's no temple. What do you think they're supposed to be doing?
And I would say that is the issue that is being brought up by J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson. He's just kind of listening to this man. I don't know if he's a pastor or what he is exactly, but his perspective is that he's saying that they're like kind of not a valid representation of like Jesus wasn't doing the same things that they're doing, that rabbinic Judaism is doing, like pretty much just Jewish people in general. That's really what it is. It's like, how do we operate with there not being a temple and not being a way to have sacrifices, not being able to carry out the laws of Moses that is handed out to them.
Right.
So really, like, and I want to jump back into this a little to go a bit further, like let him carry out his thought regarding the Nadab and Abihu situation, and like just see what you can pick up, what you hear from it, and what sounds like something to even comment on.
Took their own light and decided to light the altar with their own fire. King James calls it strange fire because it wasn't native to the altar. It was their own light. They used their own Zippo, in other words. And God destroyed them. He killed them. Those two guys, the ground swallowed them up and ate them, destroyed them in fire, because the faith of the Old Testament was given, the cultic religion, to Israel very specifically. It had to be observed a very specific way through the specific means that God gave. They weren't supposed to deviate at all. It's like the guy that reached out to grab the Holy of Holies before it hit the ground and God killed. Well, God didn't tell him to touch it. He told him.
So it's just, and this is like where I completely agree. It's like, it's just, God is very particular. If he says to do something, he wants it done a certain way, especially it seems like in the Old Testament and like in the laws that are given. This is like completely foreign to our normal way of Christian life that we carry out Christianity today. So it doesn't a lot of times compute to just people that are familiar just with going to church on Sunday, and the answer is always just Jesus, Bible, you know, and just simple, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not to mean that like we've dumbed it down, but we have simplified the message in a lot of ways that people aren't really used to and familiar with.
Dumb down what?
We've kind of like
I missed one word.
No, we've like, I think we've made it really simple, because it's not that we want to treat people like as like they're not in the know, or like they can't handle all of this. They can only handle a certain amount, but rather like when the apostles came, like the message was the kingdom of God and the gospel. And we've kind of taken the gospel message and we've run with it, and that's it. Just Jesus' life, burial, death, and resurrection. And we think that things that aren't that needed today, that we aren't actually actively carrying out today, that it's really no longer, it's a relic of the past. But just getting into this, like, do you see kind of like the difference, like him bringing up the Nadab and Abihu situation? I know where I get where he's going with that. He's saying that it's just that they were doing it in a way that God had not prescribed, so that they weren't like the true, real priests of God, in the same way that today people that are doing Judaism, they can't do it. They can't go to the temple and sacrifice. So they're no longer a real religion. And I would just say there were times in the Old Testament that the people were thrown out of the land, and even out of the Old Testament, they had to be able to, like, to say that Daniel wasn't a real Jew or wasn't validly conducting himself in his religion and his faith because he couldn't go to the temple. The temple had been destroyed.
So why back then they had the temple in Jerusalem and they had a bunch of synagogues, right?
Yes. I mean, they
Okay,
had the temple.
Can they
and
do
eventually
the sacrifices and everything at the synagogues or no?
No, the only sacrifices that only happened at the temple.
Okay. So why haven't they built it yet?
Okay, and that most Christians, and I would even myself would have said this, like that it's no longer, we don't need a temple. Jesus is the temple. Jesus is the sacrifice.
I know.
He's the high priest.
I know, but if you're saying the Jews now, aren't you saying they're practicing a wrong religion? Well,
This guy is saying that. JD Hall is saying that. I'm not saying, I wouldn't say that. I'm saying that they are disconnected. They did not embrace the Messiah when he came. But that doesn't mean that like from that point on, just because they did something very evil and rejected him, and not all of them rejected him. Obviously, the whole foundation of the church was all Jewish people.
Okay, so Jesus was in Judaism, but now we're Christianity because we believe in Jesus, but he was Jewish. So what happens to Judaism now? Is it right? Is it wrong? They don't need to sacrifice and everything.
And I would say,
do they?
It's not like, see, that's the difference. It's not like need to sacrifice. I don't think they ever needed to sacrifice. Like it was, because even the sacrificing of the animals wasn't actually removing their sins. It was, I think, in a specific time period in history that they were able to commune with the holy God, like the true and living God. And God made it a way that he was revealing himself and manifesting his presence. And the only way that they could approach the holiness of God through the temple was if blood was spilled, animals, like the way that he had prescribed. And it was just like almost like a covering. It was like cleansing them so that in ritual purity, that was kind of the main thing, so that they could approach him. It wasn't actually.
I know. I mean, I get that.
Like, why is there still? What are the Jewish people still doing?
Yeah, why is there still Judaism, or why isn't all of us called Judaism if that's what Jesus was himself?
It's because it's the same people and same religion that even from the time of Moses, from the time of Abraham, it's the same like lineage and people for the most part. That they just missed the big sign that the Messiah was there in their midst. And they're just continuing that religion without him. They're still like driving down the road, but they've just missed picking up the most important passenger along the ride.
But like nothing we do, I don't know. I just don't know why there's Christianity in Judaism.
Like why there is, because Christianity is just like it became. I would say it became primarily a religion of Gentiles. And that it's just they took the name of, because the Gentiles, like the early believers were called Christians, and they developed it into this religion, which is primarily just it's not even a sect of Judaism. It morphed into this whole new framework and ideology and idea, which was like kind of like this new people that because the Messiah was here, this new people is replaced all the original people. And it's like most people would not use that terminology that we've replaced them, that replacement theology, but that is kind of what it boils down to. A lot of times people get hung up on labels or words, but really, like, what are you meaning when you're saying those words? You know? So I would just say, like, about that, like, why is there still Judaism? Well, do you kind of get why? It's because it's the same religion going that was happening.
But they missed Jesus.
Yeah, and they're just still going. But now they don't have a way to live out the law or like fully live out the law because they don't have a temple.
But can you just imagine, like, if you were just a Jew back then, and like wouldn't it just change, like rock, like the core of who you were? Wouldn't it change your religion all of a sudden? Like,
but what change? What are you talking about?
Like, there's just believing in Jesus.
But what do you mean by that? Because it's like these people, they would have just been there.
I mean, I guess that's the whole time they were looking. They knew Messiah was coming. They knew that. So why do you think, with all the miracles and everything, why did they miss it? How'd they miss it? He was just too humble and too humble beginnings and stuff.
Well, I mean, the conversation was primarily between like Jesus and the Jewish leaders, and the Jewish leaders just missed the boat. They didn't want anything to do because he was challenging their authority. It had been kind of like the religious leaders of Israel today. You know, there's rabbis, people in high authority, and it would have cost them everything to surrender to him because he wasn't coming in to take over Rome, defy the Romans, and just install his kingdom right then, which was what they wanted. So they just we've heard these things all the time, that they wanted a Messiah that was going to be in the Messiah, like King David, who was going to just overthrow everything and set up his kingdom and everything to be, all the promises that are in the Old Testament to be fulfilled right in their midst. Like what we look forward to in Jesus' second coming, that's what they wanted right then. And they didn't really separate a first and second coming. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're carrying out, those same people are carrying out the laws, and they've made it into, they've added a lot of things to it. And this is kind of like the issue that Jesus was having when he was having these conversations with the rabbis of his day, or those leaders. It's the same issue. Like, they were making laws, and I think Jesus was all for, he was good with additional laws to kind of be like hedges or protect God's holy law. But it's when something goes in and undoes it or makes it so you can't actually fulfill God's actual law. If you set up a law around it just to protect you from possibly breaking it at all, but then you've made it so insulated that you're not even fulfilling what God originally said.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was what Jesus was hammering home to these people. And it's just a different mindset. These were Jews, and Jesus was a Jew. The apostles were Jews. This was an in-house discussion of how to rightly carry out God's law. And Jesus, that's what he was arguing with them about all the time. It wasn't this Jesus against the Jews kind of thing, but we've kind of in our mind made it that way because that's the way it comes off in the pages of the New Testament. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But let's go a little bit further about this, because this whole concept and a discussion that J.D. Hall breaks down and gets into is very intriguing to me, because he makes it seem like them using this unauthorized fire or whatever, that it just disqualified the whole religion because they were doing that. That's what it seems like to me, what he's insinuating.
Not to touch it. Follow God's rules is the point. It's a very precise religion because everything is designed to point to Jesus in a very specific way. And so the Passover religion the Passover rite that they're observing, and in fact, most of rabbinic Judaism is way more deviated from the Old Testament than just what Zippo was used to light the altar. It's a complete manufacture of new rites and rituals that.
So this right here, it just, to me, it makes it so clear. This is how most people see it. This is how most people are looking at this. They're not entangled in the nuances of Judaism and what it actually is, and the conversation that is happening, because we've taken Christianity, we've taken Christ, we have Christ, that's it. We don't want to get into what Jesus actually himself believed or what he would have taught necessarily, because it kind of, a lot of the things he taught go against what we fundamentally do today in Christianity.
Like what?
One of the things is he said he did not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law. And a lot of that we've kind of made it seem like, well, that he said, I didn't come to abolish the law, but I came to abolish the law light. I came to, that we use that word fulfill in the same way as abolish, but just a different term for it. In all practical purposes.
Mean in this instance then?
To fully carry it out, to be the embodiment of it, to the fullest measure, to take it to the extreme.
Doesn't that just mean he followed all these perfectly, so he fulfilled it?
Yeah, he did. He rightly carried them out completely in perfectness. He did it.
So we don't have to.
But that's the leap that most people take. That's he fulfilled it. That means we don't have to. And so this is the difference that I would say. Him talking, his primary audience is Jewish people. That was the conversation he was having to primarily Jewish people.
Who's Jesus?
Jesus, when he's talking about that. So I think the law is still in effect, but it doesn't apply exactly the same to Jews as it does to Gentiles. There are things that like the Jews are completely under the yoke of the entire law. That means they have to, if they disobey anything in the law, they're sinning. But there's things then in the law that aren't exactly prescribed to Gentiles. Jews have to keep kosher. They have to not eat unclean animals. But that law was never, ever given to Gentiles. And even today in rabbinic Judaism, they wouldn't expect, it's a specific covenant that God made with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai. You know what I mean? But what do you think about and the abolishing as opposed to the fulfilling? Because this is different than a lot of people, even normal regular Christians. Like if we go to church on Sunday, most of the people there aren't going to necessarily agree with that. Most people think that it is Jesus nailed the commandments to the cross, that we don't necessarily need to keep them, to be almost like, who's that guy that he's a pastor in Georgia. I forget his name. We've watched a lot of videos about him, but he's like, we're not under commandments, but we're what does love require? That's the commandment we have to live by. What does love require? And I would say that that's right, but it's not that we aren't throwing out the law. I think the law is still active and in effect. But I don't know, most people, this is kind of the disagreement. Even most Christians, like I would say the majority of Christians aren't going to agree with what I'm saying right there. But I think that this is a very key point that people have made, that they make it a distinction-less theology, saying Gentiles and Jews are the exact same. That because Jesus is here, God has made one new man. There's no distinction between male or female, Jew or Gentile, whatever, slave or all the terminology that Paul uses. But we understand that we take that out of context. We stripped it out of context. Paul's talking about in regard to salvation, how we're made right with God. And he's driving home that point because it's like assumed in that day and age, obviously there's a difference between Jews and Gentiles. Obviously, there's a difference between males and females. Like that, I don't think that's been obliterated. But from your perspective, like in hearing this, and I know we don't always talk about this stuff like in detail, but you pretty much understand from where I'm coming from in a lot of ways, and I've changed my viewpoint in a lot of ways. But from your vantage point, hearing this, like, what do you like? I guess as the normal regular Christian, what do you when you hear that? Is it just kind of fluff? They don't really deal with it, or is it something? Is there something there you think?
What exactly?
What I'm talking about, the distinction, like Jew and Gentile. I guess start
okay,
there.
Okay. At first, it's like, well, aren't we all the same under Christ? Why is it different from each one and the other? But then, in a weird, honest way, I'm glad I'm not under it. I guess, is that bad to say? It seems like there's a lot of rules and regulations they have to follow.
Yeah. I'm the same way, like where I think it's not necessarily that I look at it as like I'm glad I'm not under it, because me, we're probably a lot different. I'm more of like I want to know what do you want me to do, God, or what do you want me to do in any situation. I don't like gray areas,
Yeah.
I like to know just whatever it is exactly. I guess that is why in a lot of ways I'm very drawn to Roman Catholicism. It's more strict, and not even necessarily strict, but it's more outlined on what you're supposed to do. And
they're called rituals. You like doing something. You like checking off a box. Seems like.
Yeah, and I think that's just everybody's different. Some people like it, some people don't, and it's not like checking off a box for me. It's just I want to know what I'm doing is precisely what I should be doing, and I don't like the gray areas. I like to have the black and white. I'm very black and white, I guess, how I see it. But just and even in Judaism, like why God set up the whole laws and how they were supposed to do all that in itself, it was probably to distinguish them from the other nations. That was pretty much the main thing. And he didn't put all these laws on the people of Israel themselves. And I mean, not on people. I didn't mean that. He didn't put all these laws on all the nations. He specifically put it on the Jewish people. But here, I want to just kind of wrap it up with a little bit more of with J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson right here.
Aren't in the text at all. It's not the same religion. So when people say Jesus was a Jew, it's like, well, yes, in a sense he was. He was a physical descendant of David and of Abraham. But if you're implying that Jesus was a rabbinic Jew, no, he wasn't. That was a completely different religion. And most Christians don't grasp that. They think that, Jesus was a Jew, like Ben Shapiro. Jesus would not have recognized Ben Shapiro's religion. The Apostle Paul would not have recognized it. They would have taken a look at it and said, what is this?
Because it
I completely disagree with that. Like, just him saying that that they would not recognize or be familiar with it. I think Jesus would feel a lot more at home with Judaism than what we've made Christianity in a lot of ways. But what do you know what I'm saying? Or what do you think about that? Just me saying that. What do you think?
And you want him to feel at home with what we do. But he's a Jew and he did Judaism. So I don't know what each one does, and I don't know why they would not recognize, Jesus wouldn't recognize it. Why would not recognize it?
The Judaism or Christianity?
Yes, Judaism.
Well, that's what I disagree with. I mean, maybe they would not be carrying out exactly, but I think it would be a lot more familiar to him. If we were out in exile and Jesus was here, he would probably be more like, this is normal of going to a synagogue as opposed to going to a church service. It would, like, if you put Jesus in the context of even a Roman Catholic, I've never been to a Roman Catholic church service, or maybe even an evangelical church service, like a non-denominational, like where we go, it would probably feel really odd to him. Like, it doesn't matter for him. It's still his people. I just see it as in like the context of like the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. His brothers threw him into slavery. They sold him into slavery. He goes off and lives years in Egypt in a Gentile country, and he's probably garbed up like an Egyptian. He's living like that, but his he probably remembers more of being with the context of his family. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think?
About what? There's no question.
So about if you put Jesus in, I guess what Judaism is compared to Christianity, in the way that you see it in that context, do you see start off do you see the difference between I think we've been to a synagogue service, haven't we? I don't remember exactly, but they pull out the Torah, the scroll, and they read it, and it's more almost like the version of a Bible study is for Christianity. Christianity, a lot of times, I guess it all depends, because some Christianity, you just go to, and it's like a rock concert, and it's singing and dancing and all that kind of stuff. But I would just say, Jesus would probably have been more like a this is who he is. Growing up, he would have been going to synagogue every Sabbath and going to the temple, and in that context, he was familiar with those ways. It just I mean, if we just in using common natural sense, do you know what I'm talking about? Things would look a lot different compared to now. I just think he would just be more. It would be familiar, but it would still be the people that are not accepting him. He would have just been another regular, normal Jew going to a synagogue service today, as opposed to in a different, way out of the different context, different group of people that seemed kind of out there, but who have embraced him.
Christian.
Yeah, Christians.
Okay.
So for this J.D. Hall to say that this is not the same people, the same they've created this. They're still basing it off of the where they would say the Old Testament is their written authority. Yeah. But then they have all these extra laws which would have been the same laws that Jesus would have had in his day, but it wasn't written down. It was just kind of spoken and understood. God gave them, you have to sacrifice an animal, but they had to interpret and make decisions on how to actually do all that. and that's kind of like where it's the oral Torah was given to Moses. This is where the tradition is that the oral Torah was given to Moses on the mountain, not only just what he wrote down, but also how to actually do it. And then they passed that down along to the generations that followed.
Mhm.
But here, I want to wrap this up because I know there's a little bit more on this that I wanted to touch on.
Didn't exist.
It didn't exist. They call some things the same words, but it's a fundamentally different religion.
So most Americans are not aware of that. You would think that ordained ministers would be aware of that. Mike Huckabee is an ordained minister. He had a church
Yeah.
for years in Arkansas.
And Tucker, he has some different harsh words for Huckabee and Ted Cruz. And I know this is the internet game. This is like a natural podcasting people at each other and just. But if we take a step back, I fall into this myself. It's easy to where you're looking at other Christians and you're very harsh and critical against them over the airwaves. And maybe that is kind of the same way that Jesus would have, maybe he would have had to been. Because if someone says something publicly, you got to publicly answer it, or you know what I mean? But I guess in this context, and just kind of wrapping this up, in analyzing the difference between the Christianity and the Judaism of that day, I just see it as God gave the people of Israel those covenant promises, if you're faithfully keeping the commandments I give you, I'll keep you in the land. And there was a period of time that they were thrown out of the land and went into exile. And that same thing is happening today, that they are thrown out of the land, but they're in the diaspora. They're all throughout the world, but we're seeing them brought back. And it's not to say that because they're out of the land, that they are not faithfully carrying out what God has commanded them. Mm-hmm. But did you have anything else, Jessi? You want to? I know you're always looking for me to give it to you. I'm not great at just asking this question. I'm just seeing if you have any commentary on anything we're kind of discussing.
So outside of my realm.
But what are your thoughts? What do you think about all this, Jessi?
No.
And I just see it as that a lot of the just Christians are just at each other's necks about a lot of these things.
That's the thing. Why does anyone care what anyone else thinks? Think what you think. Why do people get so upset about it, about what someone else thinks? Who cares? How does that affect you?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm the same way. I necessarily don't care, but I just see that we are so divided. I think we don't extend grace to a lot of people. We think that that I have all the truth inside my head. They're wrong. And really, to be honest, I feel like I have all the truth inside my head. But
everyone does.
I feel like but I'm completely open to, if I'm wrong, I want to know what is right. And so it's even listening to J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson talk about these things, and even whoever else, if they have something that seems that it is real, it stands like any test of truth, I want to go towards that. I don't care. I don't throw pride out the window. I don't you say to myself, I don't care about being right, but I want to know what's right. I don't care about being the one that's right. I just want to, but I want to, you know what I mean? Get to whatever it is. And I think a lot of Christians do feel this way. And even J.D. Hall and Tucker Carlson talking about this, they're very strong in their viewpoints. But I've seen them have conversations like Tucker Carlson with Ted Cruz and with Mike Huckabee. I guess it's just whenever we disagree on something, whenever it goes to something very fundamental, we think it's a very strong issue. Tucker Carlson always points to, you can't support Israel because they're doing mass genocide. They're doing something very evil over there. And I think that just obscures the conversation and makes it all, instead of getting to the heart of the issue. What are we actually disagreeing on? What do you even think Zionism is, or what we're even talking about? Even we'll kind of wrap it up on this, the Zionism thing. Do you know anything about that?
No.
And most people don't. And I necessarily, I do, because at its most basic level, it's just that we believe that Israel, the Jews, should have a place in Israel, that they should have a safe place in Israel, of their land. I'm not even thinking of it that way. I just look at it from the perspective of the Bible. God has promised the land to Israel. And it's is God's promise only for a certain amount of time and then time's up. I don't see it as that. I see it as if God makes a promise that he doesn't renege on it. He doesn't like change his mind, or something come along and he has another shiny object and I'm just going to go with this way. I see it as if he makes a promise or a covenant with something, it's everlasting. Specifically if he says it's everlasting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right. Would you have anything else, Jessi?
No.
Okay. All right, Jessi. Well, thank you for joining today. And
sorry, I'm sure it's very interesting.
I did not set you up in a lot of ways that I probably should have. So,
what do you mean?
I don't know. What do you mean? So
I have no opinions on this topic.
But you always want me give you an exact question. I think all right, just since we're still going, I don't care. So what would you observe in me talking about this? Like, what would be a good way to ask you a question, to say something like, about this particular issue, are you yay or nay about this? I don't
even know it well enough to even give an example.
I think the issue is on my end. I'm going to figure it out.
It was interesting because I was asking you a question. I was learning about certain things.
I know what you mean. All right. We'll leave it at that. All right, everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all in the next one.